And the reason he doesn't know is just because he doesn't read. Because we saw from the video that he knows how to look at academic abstracts, he knows how to search on Google, and he recommends you do it, and yet he's not combining these two things to actually learn about how fasting affects the biology. Hello friends, welcome to another video. This one's a response video. I was asked by someone on Instagram to make a response to Greg Doucette's video on fasting from yesterday. So I'm going to watch the video right here in front of you guys and give you my comments as we go. So let's get started.
A 72-hour fast is not something you just want to take lightly. It's not healthy.
Now, I agree, fasting shouldn't be taken lightly if you have a serious medical condition, especially if you take medications to alleviate your medical condition. For example, if you take blood pressure medications, you don't want to get into a hypotensive state that could cause you to faint or something like that on an extended fast, because the fast will lower your blood pressure. Or, for example, if you're diabetic and you take insulin, you don't want to go hypoglycemic during an extended fast by not having carbs in your body and continuing to take that insulin. However, to say that fasting is not healthy is absurd. In fact, it's really bizarrely ignorant. Not to say that Greg is, I don't mean any offense, but let's put it this way. Fasting originated from studies that are over 50 years old that have realized that mammals and animals in general, including C. elegans, mice, dogs, apes, humans, their health markers and longevity improve dramatically on what's called a calorie-restricted diet. Now, unfortunately, we don't all like being calorie-restricted. It makes you hungry constantly, even though the Calorie Restriction Society, which is a real society of people that calorie-restrict, would beg to differ. They think it's great, but really, most of us don't want to do that stuff. So, longevity researchers have spent about the last 25 years trying to come up with alternative ways that we could get the same biological processes that come about when you're calorie restricted to come about when you're not calorie restricted. The main solution to this so far has been fasting. Fasting, championed most famously by the researcher Walter Longo from the University of Southern California. I think he's the head of the School of Gerontology. He's an Italian researcher, been researching the field since 1995 or so. Fasting creates or upregulates longevity pathways in the body that are similar, creates a similar biological state as calorie restriction does, without the excessive hunger. Because what happens is when you're fasted, truly fasted, your hunger abates in about 2 days. But the longevity pathways continue going on. Whereas if you're calorie restricted, you're always somewhat hungry. So what Walter Longo and other researchers discovered is that on extended fasts, meaning in humans about 4 to 5 day fasts, hunger is reduced, but when these extended fasts are implemented regularly, the health effects are similar to somebody that's actually calorie restricted. So what happens, let me take you through it actually. And actually, before I do, I want you guys to know that a variety of drugs that are researched by longevity researchers are called fasting mimetic drugs as well. So for example, metformin is a fasting mimetic drug. Metformin basically tells your body that you're nutrient deprived when you're not really nutrient deprived. And that's how it exerts its massive longevity results as well. But let me take you through what happens on a 5-day fast so you can learn more about its health effects. So on the first day, your body depletes its carbohydrate stores. It hasn't really realized that it's nutrient deprived yet. By the second day, your body realizes it's nutrient deprived and it's depleted a lot of its carbohydrate stores. At this stage, your body activates what's called the sympathetic nervous tone. So your body has two nervous systems. One is called the parasympathetic nervous tone, which is also called the feed and breed nervous tone. It's the relaxed nervous tone. And your body has a sympathetic nervous tone, which is your fight or flight nervous tone. When your body thinks that it's starving, it activates that sympathetic nervous tone. The sympathetic nervous tone then upregulates several hormones in your body, including adrenaline, noradrenaline, growth hormone, and cortisol. The effect of this is while you're burning calories but not eating, you tend to get a lot more of your calories instead of from subcutaneous fat, which is the fat underneath your skin. You get it in from the form of visceral fat or organ fat. So you start to preferentially lose fat in your waistline. That's the exact fat that's been correlated to such bad health effects like metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and everything else. So you lose more of that fat than the subcutaneous fat that you would lose on a normal diet. So that happens in the second day and continues going on throughout the fast. But by the second day, what also happens is, due to the lower protein intake that you have, you start to, you have a reduced mTOR function. mTOR is mammalian target of rapamycin or mechanistic target of rapamycin. mTOR is a pathway, the major growth pathway of the body. For example, IGF-1 is downstream to mTOR. mTOR is probably the most robustly related pathway to longevity known to humans. I won't get too much into mTOR right now, but mTOR goes down when your protein consumption goes down. By the second day, mTOR is really low. And consequently, IGF-1, that pathway very correlated to cancer, is also down. In addition to this, AMP kinase pathway is also upregulated because it's a nutrient sensing pathway. It also is upregulated when you exercise or when you take metformin, for example, and that goes up. And AMP kinase is really much tied to longevity as well. And several other pathways also are upregulated, including, like, for example, sirtuins. That's the major focus of research of the famous longevity researcher David Sinclair, who has appeared on Joe Rogan a couple of times. Sirtuins are what are also upregulated by resveratrol, which is contained in red wine, and that happens as well on your extended fast. So what Walter Longo and other researchers have shown is that on a 5-day fast, you get a lot of the benefits that people get over an extended caloric restriction without the extreme hunger that you get. So if you do these 5-day fasts like once every few months or once a year, depending on how much damage you're doing to your body, what ends up happening during the fast is your body goes and repairs damaged DNA. You have more display of cell apoptosis, but particularly apoptosis, which is cell death of damaged cells, including senescent cells, which are sort of zombie cells in the body. Additionally, you have the birth of new cells, which comes from the greater expression of growth hormone in the body. So these stem cells are baby cells that do not yet have any damage to the DNA done from DNA damage happens either due to injury or due to replication errors over time. So as you grow older, you get more DNA damage in the cells that you have. And this is what leads you to getting more cancer over time, because as your cells divide and they already have damage in the DNA, they spread that DNA damage through the body and you end up getting cancer. So what happens is during an extended fast, you get the birth of these baby new cells, stem cells, that don't have any DNA damage. And then after the fast, when you eat protein and your mTOR is turned on, these cells grow and proliferate into normal cells. And at the same time, you're destroying these DNA damaged cells in the body. So you're sort of recycling your body. That's why it's called a health preserving effect. But anyway, enough for now. Let's watch more of the video and see what he's saying.
It's not a shortcut. You can't just not eat properly and say, oh, I'm just going to do a 72-hour fast to make up for messing up for the last 2 weeks.
I think Greg is talking mainly about losing fat from an extended fast, a 3-day fast in this case. And I would agree with him. It won't do the same thing that would happen from reducing your calories over a long time period. Specifically, if you reduce your calories over a long time period, you'll preferentially reduce subcutaneous fat, which is that fat that's on your arms and preventing you from seeing your muscle fibers. Whereas if you do a 72-hour fast, you're going to preferentially reduce fat between your organs and in your waistline. So it'll shrink your waist more than it'll shrink your arms or not muscle. I'm not saying arms because of muscle, but it'll shrink your waist more than it'll shrink anything else overall.
You don't lose any muscle in 72 hours. Are you guys insane? Of course you do.
I wonder if that's really true. There is a tremendous amount of research that shows that we don't lose as much muscle on extended fast as we do when calorie restricted for a long time period. I assume Greg has not read this research. However, intuitively, it would be hard to realize this in your own self. So for example, I don't have much muscle anymore, but I've done a bunch of 5-day and 1-week-long fasts. And it's really hard to tell if you're losing muscle because you lose more glycogen than you do when you're, for example, in a ketogenic state. You lose so much glycogen. And biologically, I mean, theoretically, we know that what your body needs during an extended fast is calories, which you can get from fat, but it also needs protein, right? And that's where autophagy comes in. Your body needs protein, so it breaks down protein in your body. I think that Greg thinks that your body is only able to get protein from muscle. I think that he may not realize that skin and other tissue is also protein, and your body does not need to burn muscle. It could also burn other tissue. And in fact, if you are, and I don't know yet, he's doing a review of another guy's video. I don't know if the guy's working out or if they're going to talk about it, but if you're working out and sending signals to your body that you need that muscle while you're fasting, your body will try its best not to burn that muscle. Your body's not stupid. If it has excess skin, which we all do, it'll burn that skin.
What are some of the negative side effects? You're gonna feel like poop.
This is not true. I guess Greg has never fasted much before. You do feel low energy in the 4th or 5th day, a little bit in the 3rd day, but the first 2 days you feel, in fact, you have more energy. You don't even feel, because of the change in adrenaline and and the sympathetic nervous tone in general, you have more energy in the first 2 days. It doesn't even affect, so if this guy's doing a 72-hour fast, it will not affect his energy whatsoever. I mean, the only thing that's going to happen is he's going to have trouble sleeping because he's going to feel like he drank a bunch of coffee because his sympathetic nervous tone is so upregulated. So you're not going to feel like poop. That's crazy.
Have you ever tried not eating that long? I've made it to 30 hours without eating.
That's crazy that he's advising people and he's never tried it himself, which is why I guess he doesn't really understand this. Makes sense.
It's a nightmare!
Now, the reason is not because you're gonna feel like poop. The reason is because he's a food addict. He has addiction to food. And because when you're not able to eat, you get bored. You don't know what to do. Just like during this coronavirus, we're all sitting at home and we don't know what to do and we keep eating from the fridge because we're bored and we have an addiction. We have an addiction that we need to eat. So that's the only issue. No, but you have great energy. If you have discipline, it's not an issue at all. You feel great during a fast.
72-hour fast, increased growth hormone, it's not building muscle. If it were like this, then hey, why wouldn't all the pro bodybuilders do this diet? We'll eat for 4 days normal, then we'll fast for 72 hours and we'll get huge because we'll have more growth hormone.
Greg, first of all, bodybuilders don't get huge from growth hormone. What growth hormone does is increase water retention in the muscles. Have you ever seen a giant that was very muscular? Tell me, Greg, go on Wikipedia, check out a list of the tallest people in the world. Which one of them has a lot of muscle? Tell me, I've never seen it before. Growth hormone actually causes insulin resistance, which lowers eventually the amount of muscle that you have in your body or the amount of visible muscle that you have in your body because you can't store glycogen in the muscles. What growth hormone does in the short term is, well, first of all, it burns fat in the body, that's for sure. But in the short term, it causes, and I have no proof of this, this is from personal experience and experience of people I know, is that it causes a difference in water retention somehow in the muscle. Nobody gets muscular from growth hormone. And how do you know that? If you take growth hormone by itself, you will not get muscular. In fact, you won't even look slightly bigger. And if you do, it'll be like 1%. It's very little.
You gotta be careful. Food has vitamins and minerals that you need.
Wow, Greg is warning you. He says you have to be careful because a 72-hour fast is dangerous. You need vitamins and minerals. See, Greg, unfortunately, is a victim of the vitamania that resulted in the world following the discovery of vitamins in the early 20th century. You see, let's talk about vitamins. There are vitamins that are water soluble that your body can't store that much of. These vitamins include vitamin C and the vitamins B, except for B12. The problem with this is that even with these vitamins, you require months and months of deficiency to result in anything that could harm your health. Scurvy does not happen to us if we stop consuming things that contain vitamin C for 2 months. It takes a year or more, depending on how much vitamin C you consumed originally. And that's with the water-soluble vitamins. The fat-soluble vitamins you could store for a long time. For example, vitamin A is easily stored for a year. In fact, in third world countries where people are deficient of vitamin A, they give them pills every 6 months So those are fat-soluble vitamins. But even the water-soluble, Greg probably doesn't know the difference between fat-soluble and water-soluble vitamins. But the point is, and I'm sure he probably doesn't know what they really do in the body, because none of us do. All we know is that we have deficiencies. When we have deficiencies in them, we have serious problems in the body. But in terms of, oh, I lost a little bit of vitamin, is that bad for me? No, nobody knows. Anybody who tells you that either works for a supplement company or doesn't understand the history of the study of vitamins. And talking about minerals, yes, okay, there are two minerals that you want to be concerned about in an extended fast: magnesium and sodium. Those are the only two. And sodium, not so much. Really, on a 5-day fast, you really don't have to worry about it. Taking some sodium in could hold a little bit more water that may make you feel better on the 4th and 5th day, but really it's not so much of a concern. Magnesium, as I've mentioned in my How to Fast video, I take quite a bit of magnesium during a fast, around 800 milligrams a day, and there is good reason to take magnesium. But other than that, everything else, there are people that fasted for 3 weeks and their vitamin levels are fine, and there's evidence of this. So,
oh my God, food is sparse.
Sparse.
okay. He said your body is evolved. If it goes 3 days without food, it thinks food is sparse. And then he corrected himself on Google, saying that it's actually sparse. He meant scarce.
Your NEAT is going to go down. Non-exercise activity thermogenesis.
And he says that other people think that their metabolism is going to go up. No, what they think is that they're not going to lose as much muscle as during a calorie deficit over the long term because of the change in the hormonal environment in the body, the sympathetic nervous tone to be specific. They don't think that the metabolism, at least I don't know about the guys talking about David Lade, but I mean, the people in the longevity community that read, they don't think that your metabolism is not going to go down. Your metabolism does go down. You get cold during your fast. After about a day or two, you start to get cold. And there's a reason you're cold, you know. And by the way, calorie restricted people from the Calorie Restriction Society, they're wearing sweaters all year round. But in a fast, the same thing happens to you. You get cold. But that doesn't mean that you're losing more muscle.
It's not healthy. Not healthy. What about your ability? Before trying a 72-hour fast, ask your doctor if it makes sense. At least consult a dietitian. Or at least ask your mom and dad or best friend, or do a search on Google, more than one.
Greg Doucette says to do a search on Google. So he knows you can search on Google. He has proof to us that he knows what an academic article is. He showed us an abstract. But he can't read. That must be it. Alright, so I got tired of watching it. I think he's just repeating himself at this point. There's about 3 minutes left. Closing remarks. The reason why people fast, the real reason why people fast, is because they want to have the effects of caloric restriction without the pain of always being hungry all year long for years on years on years. So what we do is we impose what are called periodic fasts every so often. You know, I do it once a month right now with a 5-day fast. I used to do it once a quarter with a week-long fast. And we do this to increase, targeted cell apoptosis in our body, to increase the birth of new stem cells, to turn on the AMP kinase pathway, to turn off the mTOR pathway and resulting IGF-1 pathway. We do it to activate sirtuins in the body. We do it for a lot of reasons. But the real reason is because we've seen in animals that this extends lifespan. And not only does it extend lifespan, but it extends health span, which means healthy years of living. The animals are more robust when they periodically fast. And we know that we are not so far removed from the animals being studied that it wouldn't influence us in the same way. So, this is the reason we fast. Now there is another reason, which is propagated by people like Dr. Fung from Canada. I'm only calling him doctor because I don't know his first name, but he is a medical doctor. And he recommends to people to fast for states of metabolic disease, like metabolic syndrome, as well as diabetes. Because he has noticed that people who do a few of these fasts can actually cure their type 2 diabetes. And they can easily cure their metabolic syndrome. And they preferentially, visibly, empirically lose fat in their waistline, the fat that is so detrimental to human health. So that's the reason we fast, Greg. Now, it also preferentially targets the midsection, and Greg is a competitor in classic physique. You would think that he would be doing everything he could to reduce the size of his midsection. Not that his midsection is huge, you know, but it's not tiny either. But I mean, it's not that it's huge. I've seen him posing and he looks great. But you would think he would do everything he could, and if he was doing everything he could, he would be doing this. He would be fasting as well. Overall, I think that Greg is really entertaining. He's, you know, to be honest, for me, it aggravates me a bit. He seems like really tense and he's just flexing the whole time he's on camera, but people love it and I'm glad that he's doing well and I wish him well. I just think that he should not advise so many people because he has such a big audience. You know, when I checked the video, it was 60,000 people had watched the video. He shouldn't advise such a big audience on stuff, telling them it's not healthy when he doesn't know really what he's talking about. And the reason he doesn't know is just because he doesn't read. Because we saw from the video that he knows how to look at academic abstracts, he knows how to search on Google, and he recommends you do it, and yet he's not combining these two things to actually learn about how fasting affects the biology. And it seems the only thing he knows about in terms of biological processes is autophagy. So, I mean, there's a lot more than autophagy going on there. But anyway, nonetheless, so the point is, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you learned something, and please do fast unless you have a serious medical condition, and don't pay attention to people who don't read.